Hello and welcome. In this video, we explore some of the most fascinating lost civilizations the world has ever known. Societies that shaped history, influenced cultures, and vanished into the depths of time. Some long forgotten, others still holding mysteries that defy explanation. Throughout human history, great civilizations have emerged, flourished, and then vanished. Sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly, and often leaving behind more questions than answers. These lost societies were once vibrant centers of power, innovation, and culture. Today, much of what they built lies buried, overgrown, or eroded, their languages extinct, their cities reduced to ruins, and their people remembered only through fragments. We begin with Göbekli Tepe, a site that rewrote the history of human civilization. Located in modern-day Turkey, Göbekli Tepe is believed to be the oldest known temple complex in the world. Its construction dates back to approximately 9600 BCE. Thousands of years before Stonehenge, the pyramids of Egypt, or the cities of Mesopotamia. What makes Göbekli Tepe so remarkable isn't just its age, but what it reveals about the people who built it. These were hunter-gatherers, not settled farmers. They had no cities, no written language, no metal tools. And yet, they quarried, transported, and erected massive stone pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons, arranged in circular patterns, many decorated with carvings of animals and abstract symbols. The level of organization and skill required challenges long-held beliefs about the timeline of human development. Instead of agriculture leading to complex societies, Göbekli Tepe suggests the reverse may be true, that religious or social gatherings might have driven people to organize, build, and eventually farm. Why it was built, what rituals were performed there, and why it was deliberately buried remain unsolved mysteries. Moving forward a few millennia, still in the region of Anatolia, we encounter Çatalhöyük, a settlement dating to around 7500 BCE. This Neolithic site was a densely packed city without streets. Homes were built so closely together that people walked on rooftops and climbed down into their houses through openings in the ceilings. Inside, the walls were often painted with murals, some depicting hunting scenes or symbolic figures. Burials took place beneath the floors, where family members were laid to rest under the homes they once inhabited. This early city had no clear signs of hierarchy, no palaces or temples, suggesting a more communal way of life. Yet its size and longevity hint at a level of stability and cooperation rare for its time. From Anatolia, we cross into the heart of the Sahara Desert to explore a civilization that defied its environment, the Garamantes. In what is now southern Libya, this ancient society developed a sophisticated method of surviving in one of the harshest climates on Earth. Around 500 BCE, they constructed underground tunnels called fogaras, which tapped into deep aquifers to bring water to the surface. These systems allowed the Garamantes to grow crops and sustain settlements where surface water was nearly non-existent. Their capital, Garama, housed thousands and maintained trade routes stretching across North Africa. For centuries, the Garamantes thrived as a desert power, trading goods like dates, olive oil, and even slaves. But as their water systems failed and climate conditions worsened, the Garamantes disappeared, leaving only fragments of pottery and stone to mark their presence. We now head east, to the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, cities of the ancient Indus Valley civilization, which emerged around 2600 BCE in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. At its peak, the Indus Valley civilization covered more land than either Egypt or Mesopotamia, yet it remains one of the least understood of the ancient world. Its cities were marvels of urban planning, streets laid out in precise grids, multi-story homes built from uniform bricks, and a complex drainage system more advanced than those found in much later civilizations. There were public baths, granaries, and even systems of standardized weights and measures. What is striking, however, is the absence of temples or monumental statues. There's no evidence of kings or military conquest. Their script remains undeciphered, and we know very little about their beliefs or social structure. Around 1900 BCE, the civilization began to decline, whether due to environmental change, shifting rivers, or internal collapse is still debated. By 1300 BCE, its great cities were abandoned. Thousands of miles away, in the lush jungles of Central America, another civilization was developing that would leave behind some of the most iconic artifacts in the Western Hemisphere. The Olmec civilization, considered the mother culture of Mesoamerica, flourished between 1500 and 400 BCE along the Gulf Coast of modern-day Mexico. The Olmecs were master artists and engineers. They carved colossal stone heads, some over 9 feet tall and weighing up to 40 tons. These heads, thought to represent rulers, are among the most distinctive remnants of their society. The Olmecs also built ceremonial centers, developed a calendar system, and possibly the earliest writing in the Americas. Their influence can be traced through later civilizations such as the Maya and Aztec. Yet the Olmecs left behind no known written history and no detailed account of their society. Much of what we know comes from archaeology and speculation. Around 400 BCE, their cities were abandoned, and the reasons remain unclear. Back across the Atlantic, in the Mediterranean world, we find the story of Tartessos, a semi-mythical civilization in southern Iberia, near modern-day Spain. Tartessos was described by Greek historians as a wealthy and advanced society, rich in metals and ruled by wise kings. The Tartessians traded with the Phoenicians and built elaborate cities. Their culture was unique, blending Iberian, Phoenician, and possibly even Atlantic influences. However, by the 5th century BCE, Tartessos vanishes from historical records. Some believe it was destroyed by Carthage. Others think it was absorbed into neighboring cultures. Archaeological evidence has uncovered urban centers, tombs, and artifacts, but much of Tartessos remains shrouded in legend. One of the most enigmatic civilizations of the ancient Near East was Elam, which thrived in the region that is now southwestern Iran. Beginning around 2700 BCE, Elam competed with Mesopotamia's powerful city-states, frequently waging war, forming alliances, and influencing each other's cultures. Elamite cities such as Susa became centers of art, administration, and innovation. The Elamites developed their own script, distinct from the cuneiform of their neighbors, and left behind a rich legacy of sculpture, metallurgy, and architecture. However, their records are incomplete, and their language still poses challenges for modern scholars. By the time of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, Elam had been absorbed, its distinct culture largely forgotten. Traveling southward, we arrive in Ethiopia, home to the ancient kingdom of Aksum. Between the 1st and 7th centuries CE, Aksum was one of the most powerful kingdoms in Africa. It controlled trade routes across the Red Sea, minted its own coinage, and constructed monumental obelisks. Aksum was among the earliest civilizations to convert to Christianity, and it maintained relations with the Roman and later Byzantine empires. Its capital city, also called Aksum, featured palaces, temples, and intricate stone inscriptions. The exact reasons for Aksum's decline are debated, but climate change, the rise of Islam, and the shifting of trade routes likely played a role. Today, Aksum is remembered as a foundational pillar of Ethiopian history, but globally, its story remains underappreciated. Let us now visit a civilization hidden deep in the Amazon rainforest. For centuries, scholars believed the Amazon was too inhospitable for complex societies to exist. But recent archaeological discoveries are challenging that assumption. Using satellite imagery and LiDAR, researchers have uncovered massive earthworks, roads, and even urban layouts under the jungle canopy, evidence of long-lost Amazonian civilizations. One such culture, known from sites like Kuhikugu, may have supported tens of thousands of people with sophisticated agriculture, fish farming, and interconnected cities. These societies were devastated by European diseases following contact in the 16th century, leading to their collapse before much could be documented. The jungle quickly reclaimed their cities, erasing nearly all visible traces. From the Amazon, we head to the Pacific, to the small island of Nan Madol, off the coast of Pohnpei in Micronesia. Often called the Venice of the Pacific, Nan Madol is a mysterious complex of artificial islets, connected by canals and built atop coral reefs. Constructed from massive basalt columns, some weighing several tons, Nan Madol was the ceremonial and political center of the Saudaleur dynasty, which ruled the island for centuries. How the builders moved such heavy stones across the water remains a mystery. Nan Madol fell into decline around the 16th century, likely due to rebellion and shifting power dynamics. Today, much of the site is partially submerged and threatened by erosion. The Pacific is home to another ancient mystery, the civilization of Rapa Nui, better known as Easter Island. Located over 2,000 miles from the nearest inhabited land, this small volcanic island was once home to a thriving society that erected nearly 900 massive stone statues called moai. Carved from volcanic tuff, many of these statues stand over 30 feet tall and weigh several tons. They were positioned to face inland, overlooking the villages, possibly serving religious or ancestral purposes. The society that built them likely arrived around the 12th century, developing complex rituals, a unique script called Rongo, and a hierarchical culture. However, the island's ecosystem was fragile. Over time, deforestation, soil erosion, and internal conflict weakened the population. By the time European explorers arrived in the 18th century, the society was in decline. The exact timeline and causes remain debated, but the fall of Rapa Nui's civilization has become a case study in environmental limits and societal collapse. Thousands of miles west, in what is now Cambodia, lies the remains of Angkor, capital of the powerful Khmer Empire. From the 9th to the 15th centuries, Angkor was one of the largest urban centers of the pre-industrial world. Its crowning jewel, Angkor Wat, is a vast temple complex built to honor the Hindu god Vishnu and later repurposed as a Buddhist site. The city sprawled over hundreds of square kilometers, featuring elaborate reservoirs and canals that supported agriculture and regulated flooding. Its architecture was monumental, adorned with intricate bas-reliefs depicting mythological scenes, battles, and court life. Despite its grandeur, Angkor was gradually abandoned. A combination of ecological stress, shifting political power, and repeated invasions may have contributed to its decline. By the time Western explorers rediscovered it in the 19th century, the jungle had begun to reclaim the city, leaving behind a hauntingly beautiful ruin. Farther west, in what is now Turkmenistan, the ancient city of Gunung Tepe was the center of the Oxus civilization, also known as the Bactria Margiana Archaeological Complex, BMS. Dating to around 2200 to 1700 BCE, this Bronze Age culture built fortified cities, complex irrigation systems, and ceremonial centers. Archaeologists have unearthed palaces, tombs, and sophisticated artifacts, jewelry, ceramics, and tools that suggest a highly organized society with religious rituals and long-distance trade networks. The civilization's sudden decline remains unclear, but Gunung Tepe offers a rare glimpse into a world that predated even the Persian Empire. From Central Asia, we travel to the Norte Chico civilization of Peru, which predates the Inca by thousands of years. Between 3000 and 1800 BCE, the people of Norte Chico built monumental architecture in the arid coastal valleys of Peru, especially around the site of Caral. They constructed massive platform mounds, ceremonial plazas, and pyramids, all without pottery, metallurgy, or a known writing system. Their society appears to have been peaceful and focused on agriculture and marine resources, particularly anchovies and sardines. Despite their technological limitations, the Norte Chico people created a sophisticated and enduring culture. Eventually, the civilization faded, but its innovations would influence later Andean societies. We now shift to the Hittite Empire, which once controlled vast swaths of Anatolia and the Levant around 1600 to 1178 BCE. The Hittites were among the first Indo-European speaking peoples to establish a major state. Their capital, Hattusa, was a fortified city with palaces, temples, and archives containing clay tablets written in cuneiform. The Hittites are credited with legal innovations, diplomacy, and advances in ironworking. They famously battled the Egyptians at the Battle of Kadesh and signed one of the earliest known peace treaties. Yet by the end of the 12th century BCE, the empire collapsed during the broader upheaval known as the Bronze Age collapse, and the Hittite state disappeared from history until its rediscovery in the 20th century. Let's now turn to the Minoans, one of Europe's earliest complex societies. Based on the island of Crete, the Minoan civilization flourished from about 2000 to 1450 BCE. They built elaborate palaces, such as the one at Knossos, with vibrant frescoes, indoor plumbing, and storerooms filled with massive storage jars. Minoan art reveals a culture deeply connected to nature, the sea, and ritual. Their script, known as Linear A, remains undeciphered. Around 1450 BCE, many Minoan sites were destroyed, possibly by a combination of volcanic eruption on nearby Thera and later Mycenaean invasion. By 1100 BCE, the Minoans had vanished, leaving behind myths of labyrinths, bulls, and a lost golden age. Continuing west, we arrive at Great Zimbabwe, the medieval city that flourished in southern Africa between the 11th and 15th centuries. It was the capital of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe and a major center of trade, connecting inland Africa with the Swahili coast and the Indian Ocean. Great Zimbabwe is best known for its massive stone enclosures, including the Great Enclosure, built without mortar, using interlocking stone techniques. The city supported a population in the tens of thousands and traded gold, ivory, and other goods. European colonists once denied that indigenous Africans could have built such a complex site, attributing it to foreign civilizations. However, archaeological evidence has firmly established that it was built by the Shona people. The reasons for its decline likely include environmental degradation and the shifting of trade routes. Another African mystery lies beneath the sands of the Sahara, where recent research has revealed forgotten settlements and ancient trade routes once used by trans-Saharan cultures. These include cities such as Tadmeka, a wealthy medieval center that flourished through the gold and salt trade. While the Sahara is now one of the world's most inhospitable deserts, it wasn't always so. Evidence suggests that it once supported lakes, rivers, and savannas. These green Sahara periods enabled the rise of complex societies that eventually vanished as the desert reclaimed the land. Next, we travel to the Mississippian culture of North America. Between 800 and 1600 CE, this mound-building society created urban centers such as Cahokia, near present-day St. Louis. Cahokia featured massive earthen mounds, including Monk's Mound, the largest prehistoric earthwork in the Americas, and supported tens of thousands of residents. The Mississippians engaged in agriculture, religion, and long-distance trade. Artifacts found at the site reveal a rich spiritual life centered around a complex cosmology. By the time Europeans arrived, most Mississippian cities had been abandoned, likely due to environmental pressures, warfare, and disease. Today, only the mounds remain as silent monuments to a forgotten urban culture. In the heart of the Middle East, the ancient city of Mari once flourished on the banks of the Euphrates River. During the early 2nd millennium BCE, Mari was a major political and economic center, connecting Mesopotamia with Syria and the Levant. Its palace, one of the largest from the ancient world, contained over 20,000 cuneiform tablets detailing administration, diplomacy, and daily life. Mari's destruction by Hammurabi of Babylon around 1759 BCE ended its independence, but the wealth of records left behind provides an invaluable glimpse into a vibrant and diverse society. On the Indian subcontinent, another lesser-known but remarkable culture was that of Dholavira, a major city of the Indus Valley civilization located in modern-day Gujarat, India. What sets Dholavira apart is its intricate water management system, reservoirs, dams, and drainage built to harness the scarce resources of the semi-arid landscape. The city was laid out with impressive precision, including citadels, marketplaces, and public spaces. Like other Indus sites, Dholavira reveals a society with advanced urban planning and minimal signs of war or conquest. It was abandoned around 1500 BCE as the broader Indus civilization declined. In the far north of Eurasia, the Scythians were a nomadic people who dominated the Eurasian steppe from around 900 BCE to 200 BCE. While not a civilization in the urban sense, the Scythians created a rich and distinctive culture. They built burial mounds called kurgans, some of which have yielded incredible gold artifacts and preserved mummies. Greek historians describe the Scythians as fierce warriors and expert horsemen. Their influence stretched from the Black Sea to the borders of China. Despite their impact, the Scythians eventually disappeared, absorbed or replaced by other steppe peoples such as the Sarmatians and later the Huns. Back in the Americas, the Tiahuanaco culture, based near Lake Titicaca in modern Bolivia, was one of the great pre-Incan civilizations. Flourishing between 400 and 1000 CE, Tiahuanaco was known for its monumental stonework, including the Gateway of the Sun and massive stone statues. The city's layout was tied to astronomical events, and its agricultural terraces and raised fields supported a large population at high altitude. Tiahuanaco's influence extended across the Andean region, but by 1000 CE, it began to decline. Climate change and shifts in political power likely played a role. The Andes continued to nurture advanced societies long before the rise of the Inca. One such civilization was the Chavin. Flourishing between 900 and 200 BCE in present-day Peru. The Chavin people built their ceremonial center, Chavin de Huanta, high in the Andes. The site became a major religious and pilgrimage destination for surrounding cultures. The most iconic feature of Chavin architecture is the lanzon, a carved stone monolith housed within a labyrinth of temple corridors. The figure merges human and jaguar features and is thought to represent a deity central to their belief system. The Chavin developed sophisticated metallurgy and distinctive pottery, and their art often depicted anthropomorphic creatures, serpents, and birds. Although they left no written records, their visual language influenced many subsequent Andean cultures. Moving northward in South America, we encounter the Muisca Confederation, centered in present-day Colombia. Before the Spanish conquest, the Muisca were known for their intricate goldwork and highly organized society. They lived in a network of highland settlements and practiced terrace farming and salt extraction. The Muisca are closely associated with the legend of El Dorado, which originated from their ritual in which a new leader would be covered in gold dust and would dive into Lake Guatavita. Gold artifacts from Muisca culture demonstrate exceptional craftsmanship and have been found in sacred lakes and tombs. Spanish greed for gold ultimately led to the destruction of Muisca society in the early 16th century. Now, to the shores of the Mediterranean, where the Etruscans once held sway over much of what is now Italy. Between 800 and 300 BCE, the Etruscans developed a highly advanced and urbanized civilization, known for its art, engineering, and religious rituals. They built sophisticated cities, developed writing, and laid the foundation for Roman architecture, religion, and political organization, Many aspects of Roman culture, including gladiatorial games and certain deities, have Etruscan roots. Yet their language, though partially understood, remains only fragmentarily translated, and much about their beliefs and customs is still debated. The rise of Rome eventually absorbed the Etruscan city-states, but their influence lived on. Etruscan tombs, murals, and bronze sculptures continue to offer glimpses into a civilization both refined and mysterious. To the east, across the Aegean Sea, we find the Luwians, a people who occupied parts of Anatolia during the Late Bronze Age and Early Iron Age. The Luwians were contemporaries of the Hittites and spoke an Indo-European language distinct from Hittite. They left behind inscriptions in both cuneiform and a hieroglyphic script of their own. Recent scholarship suggests that after the fall of the Hittite Empire, various Neo-Hittite and Luwian states filled the vacuum, maintaining trade and cultural continuity. Their capital cities, like Carchemish and Melid, have yielded impressive monuments and reliefs depicting gods, kings, and battles. The Luwians were eventually absorbed by expanding empires like Assyria, but their contributions to the cultural mosaic of Anatolia remain significant. Heading north into the Eurasian steppe, we meet the Sintashta culture, dated to around 2100 to 1800 BCE in what is now Russia and Kazakhstan. These people are of particular interest due to their association with early chariot warfare. Burials from Sintashta sites often include chariots and evidence of metallurgy, indicating a warrior society with advanced technology for its time. Some scholars believe the Sintashta may be linked to the early Indo-Iranians, and their migration patterns could explain the spread of Indo-European languages across Central and South Asia. Despite their sparse material culture, the Sintashta played a critical role in shaping the early dynamics of Eurasian civilizations. Closer to the Black Sea, the ancient city of Troy was once considered mythical, a creation of Homer's epics. But in the 19th century, Heinrich Schliemann's excavations at Hisarlik in Turkey revealed layers of settlement going back thousands of years. The most famous layer, Troy VII, is believed to correspond with the time of the Trojan War, around the 12th century BCE. Troy's strategic location at the entrance of the Dardanelles made it a key trading hub. Archaeological evidence shows signs of destruction by warfare and fire, supporting the idea of a violent end. Though the truth behind the Trojan War remains uncertain, the site of Troy confirms that a once thriving city stood at the crossroads of history and legend. Farther east, we come to the Zhou dynasty in China, particularly the Western Zhou period, 1046 to 771 BCE, which played a foundational role in shaping Chinese civilization. The Zhou overthrew the Shang dynasty and introduced the concept of the mandate of heaven, the idea that rulers derived their authority from divine favor, a philosophy that endured for centuries. The Western Zhou established a feudal system, expanded agriculture, and made early advancements in bronze casting and military organization. Eventually, internal strife and external invasions led to the dynasty's division and the rise of the Eastern Zhou. While the Zhou dynasty itself is not lost, much of its early culture is poorly understood, preserved only through inscriptions and fragmentary texts. In Southeast Asia, the Pyu city-states flourished in what is now Myanmar between the 2nd century BCE and 11th century CE. These were some of the earliest urban centers in Southeast Asia, with cities like Sri Kshetra and Bhakthano serving as hubs of Buddhism, trade, and regional governance. The Pew built brick stupas, temples, and extensive moated cities. They had contact with China and India, and their inscriptions reveal an early form of written Burmese. Over time, the Pew were gradually assimilated into the pagan kingdom, and their distinct culture faded. However, their contributions to the development of Burmese society remain embedded in the region's heritage. Now we travel to Japan's Jomon period, one of the oldest known continuous cultures in the world, stretching from around 14,000 to 300 BCE. The Jomon people were semi-sedentary hunter-gatherers known for their elaborate pottery, often decorated with cord-marked patterns. The term Jomon itself means cord-marked. Their society was unusually complex for a hunter-gatherer group, with evidence of long-term settlements, ritual sites, and burial practices. They built pit dwellings and subsisted on fishing, foraging, and hunting. The Jomon culture gradually gave way to the Yayoi period, which introduced rice farming and metallurgy. Yet, the Jomon legacy endures in Japanese folklore and traditional crafts. In the Caucasus region, the kingdom of Urartu rose to power around the 9th century BCE around Lake Van in modern eastern Turkey. This kingdom was a formidable rival to Assyria, known for its fortresses, canals, and ironwork. The Urartians left behind inscriptions in a unique language written in cuneiform, as well as massive architectural remains. Urartian society emphasized military organization and engineering, and their capital, Tushpa, was fortified with stone walls and temples. The kingdom declined under pressure from both Assyrian attacks and internal strife, and was eventually replaced by the Medes and later Armenians. Much of what is known about Urartu comes from their inscriptions and references in Assyrian records. In Europe, the Vinča culture, centered in the Balkans around 5500 to 4500 BCE, is one of the oldest known cultures to use a form of proto-writing. The Vinča people built organized settlements, produced intricate ceramics, and crafted tools from copper, possibly making them among the first to experiment with metallurgy. Their symbols, found on clay tablets and pottery, have been debated as either decorative patterns or an early writing system. The culture declined around 4500 BCE, possibly due to environmental changes or shifting trade dynamics. Though largely forgotten until modern excavations, the Vinča culture may represent a key chapter in the story of European prehistory. We now turn to the ancient region of Thrace, located in what is today parts of Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. The Thracians were a group of Indo-European tribes who flourished from the 2nd millennium BCE until Roman conquest. Despite their proximity to Greece and their interactions with both Greeks and Persians, the Thracians never formed a centralized empire. Instead, they lived in loosely connected tribal kingdoms. They left behind rich archaeological finds, elaborate gold jewelry, intricate ceramics, and monumental tombs. Thracian tombs such as those at Kazanlak reveal detailed murals and ritual significance. While their society produced skilled warriors and artisans, their lack of written records leaves many aspects of their culture in shadow. Continuing in Europe, we come to the Latin culture, often associated with the later Celts. Emerging around 450 BCE in what is now Switzerland and spreading across much of Central and Western Europe, the Latin people developed a distinctive style of art, flowing, abstract designs on weapons, jewelry, and everyday items. They lived in fortified hill settlements and engaged in long-distance trade, exchanging goods with the Mediterranean world. Though the Celts are still known in folklore and some modern cultures, much of their classical society, especially that of the Latin period, was lost under the Roman expansion. Only through archaeology can we now trace the sophistication and reach of this once powerful network of tribal societies. In the Arabian Peninsula, the Nabatean kingdom left behind one of the most visually stunning legacies of the ancient world, the rock-cut city of Petra. Flourishing between the 4th century BCE and 2nd century CE, the Nabateans controlled trade routes that moved incense, spices, and textiles across Arabia. Petra, their capital, was carved directly into sandstone cliffs. It included temples, tombs, and an advanced water management system, with cisterns, aqueducts, and dams, crucial for survival in the desert. The Nabateans developed their own script, based on Aramaic, and practiced a syncretic religion blending local and Greco-Roman deities. After being annexed by Rome, their distinct culture faded, but Petra remains a lasting monument to their ingenuity. Across the Red Sea, the land of Punt appears in ancient Egyptian records as a trading partner that provided incense, ebony, ivory, and exotic animals. The exact location of Punt remains unknown. Some theories place it in modern-day Somalia, others in Eritrea or Yemen. Though no confirmed Puntite settlements have been found, depictions from Egyptian temples show voyages to this land, complete with foreign ships and richly dressed dignitaries. Punt's mystery is not due to lack of significance, but to the absence of local written records. It stands as one of the ancient world's great unanswered questions. Let's now return to South Asia, to the Mauryan Empire, particularly the reign of Ashoka the Great, who ruled from about 268 to 232 BCE. While the Mauryan Empire itself is not lost, many of its cities and cultural centers have faded from history. Ashoka's promotion of Buddhism, as recorded in his rock edicts, marked a profound cultural transformation across the Indian subcontinent. Numerous Mauryan cities, monasteries, and inscriptions have only recently been uncovered, revealing a vast infrastructure of governance, religion, and communication. As excavations continue, sites like Pataliputra, once a capital city, are beginning to provide clearer pictures of this ancient superstate's daily life. Eastward, the kingdom of Funan, based in modern-day southern Vietnam and Cambodia, flourished from the 1st to 6th centuries CE. Funan was one of Southeast Asia's earliest complex societies, known for its canals, urban centers, and trade networks connecting India and China. Chinese records describe Funan as a cosmopolitan kingdom with written language, formal diplomacy, and a monarchy that welcomed foreign ideas and religions, including early Hindu and Buddhist influence. Despite its significance, Funan left few indigenous texts, and much of its history has been pieced together through archaeology and foreign accounts. From Southeast Asia, we turn north to Goguryeo, one of the 3 kingdoms of ancient Korea. Goguryeo was founded in 37 BCE and lasted until 668 CE, occupying a vast territory from northern Korea into parts of modern-day China. It was a military power with a strong cultural identity, known for its fortress cities, mural-decorated tombs, and Buddhist temples. The capital, Pyongyang, was the center of art and scholarship. Koguryeo's fall to the Silla-Tang alliance marked the end of one of East Asia's most formidable ancient states. Though less celebrated than later Korean kingdoms, its legacy helped shape Korean language, culture, and national identity. Crossing the Pacific once more, we find Pueblo Bonito in Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. Between 850 and 1250 CE, the ancestral Puebloans built a series of massive stone structures here, aligned with astronomical events and interconnected by a road system spanning the desert landscape. Pueblo Bonito had hundreds of rooms and multiple stories, possibly serving as a ceremonial and administrative center. It was constructed with precision and care, using sandstone blocks and wooden beams. The reasons for Chaco's eventual abandonment may include drought, resource depletion, and social upheaval, but its cultural importance remains evident in Native American oral traditions. In Central Asia, the Sogdians occupied key trade routes of the Silk Road from the 6th century BCE into the early Islamic period. Their cities, like Samarkand and Panjakent, were centers of trade, religion, and art, linking China with Persia and Rome. The Sogdians were famous for their multiculturalism, hosting Zoroastrians, Buddhists, Nestorian Christians, and eventually Muslims. They developed a distinctive art style combining Iranian, Indian, and Chinese influences. Though later absorbed by the expanding Islamic Caliphate, the Sogdian legacy survives in manuscripts, murals, and the enduring cosmopolitanism of cities along the Silk Road. A lesser-known but equally impressive civilization was that of the Aksumite Empire, located in modern-day Ethiopia and Eritrea. Between the 1st and 7th centuries CE, Aksum became a major power in the Red Sea region, trading ivory, gold, and exotic animals with the Roman Empire, India, and Arabia. Aksumite kings minted their own coins, erected towering obelisks, and adopted Christianity in the 4th century, making Aksum one of the first Christian kingdoms in the world. Declining trade and climate change likely contributed to its fall. Many of its inscriptions and monuments remain partially buried or unstudied. Lastly, in this segment, we return to the Mediterranean to examine the Mycenaean civilization, which dominated mainland Greece from about 1600 to 1100 BCE. The Mycenaeans were the first advanced civilization in Greece, known for their palatial centers, linear B script, and epic warfare, immortalized in the legends of the Trojan War. Their cities, such as Mycenae, Tiryns, and Pylos, featured cyclopean walls, grand tombs, and administrative complexes. Their collapse around 1200 BCE coincides with the wider Bronze Age collapse. The causes remain debated: invasions, internal revolt, natural disasters, or economic instability. In the centuries that followed, writing vanished in Greece, leading to a period known as the Greek Dark Ages. Only oral traditions and scattered ruins preserved the memory of the Mycenaeans, until archaeology brought them back into historical light. As we continue to explore the echoes of forgotten worlds, our attention turns to Tartaria, a term used historically in European maps to describe a vast and ill-defined region spanning parts of Central Asia, Eastern Europe, and Siberia. Though modern historians do not recognize Tartaria as a single unified civilization, the persistence of this label reflects the mystery that surrounded the steppes and mountain ranges for centuries. The peoples who inhabited this expanse, Turkic tribes, Mongolic groups, and various nomadic cultures, left behind few enduring monuments, but a legacy of mobility, oral tradition, and military prowess. Their cities, such as Sarai, the capital of the Golden Horde, often rose and fell with astonishing speed. While Tartaria may not denote a single civilization, it reminds us how the unknown becomes myth in the absence of records. Next, we journey to the ancient island of Thule, a land referenced by Greek and Roman geographers as the northernmost place in the known world. Thule was described as a cold, misty land where the sun never fully set in summer and never rose in winter. It may have referred to parts of Iceland, Norway, or the Faroe Islands. Though no civilization named Thule has been identified archaeologically, the concept of Thule captured the imagination of ancient writers. It became a symbol for the limits of exploration, a place where the map ends and mystery begins. In later centuries, Thule was reimagined in different cultural and political contexts, but its origins remain rooted in the blurry edges of ancient geographical understanding. Returning to more tangible ground, we arrive in northern Mesopotamia to uncover the story of Tel Brak, one of the earliest known urban centers in human history. Located in present-day Syria, Tel Brak predates even the famous cities of southern Mesopotamia. Around 6000 BCE, it began as a small settlement and gradually expanded into a sprawling city. Archaeologists have uncovered monumental temples, large residential areas, and a puzzling feature known as the Eye Temple, named for the thousands of eye-shaped idols found within its walls. These figurines may have represented worshippers, ancestors, or protective spirits. Tel Brak's rise and fall were shaped by its access to trade and resources, and by the larger political currents of early state formation in the region. To the north of Tel Brak, across the Taurus Mountains, lies the site of Arslan Tepe. Flourishing between 4000 and 3000 BCE, Arslan Tepe has revealed a wealth of information about the transition from tribal societies to state-level organization. One of the oldest known swords was discovered here, and its temples and palatial complexes hint at the emergence of centralized authority. The people of Arslan Tepe developed early administrative systems, possibly including the first forms of accounting and record-keeping. Their innovations influenced the later civilizations of Anatolia and Mesopotamia. As nearby powers grew stronger, Arslan Tepe was gradually absorbed or abandoned, its legacy buried beneath later layers of history. In the deserts of modern-day Jordan, the Bronze Age city of Bab-edh-Dra stands as one of the proposed sites for the biblical cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Whether or not it is connected to those ancient tales, Bab-edh-Dra was a significant urban center around 3000 BCE. It had a large necropolis with thousands of shaft tombs, a fortified town center, and evidence of advanced water storage. Its sudden destruction possibly by fire or earthquake, adds to its aura of mystery. The city was never rebuilt, and its remains were left to the desert winds. Its ruins stand as a testament to early urban development in the Levant and to the fragility of settlement in hostile environments. In Iran's central plateau, the ancient city of Shari-Sukter, or the Burnt City, provides a fascinating glimpse into a Bronze Age society that flourished around 3200 BCE. Excavations have revealed multi-room houses, complex burial customs, and some of the earliest known examples of artificial eyeballs, brain surgeries, and board games. What sets Shari-Sukter apart is its apparent cultural and technological sophistication, despite being located far from the better-known centers of Mesopotamia or the Indus Valley. Its people may have served as intermediaries between East and West, and their city declined after a series of destructive fires, leaving behind a well-preserved archaeological record. Now let's return to Africa, where the Nok culture of Nigeria is known for its remarkable terracotta sculptures. Flourishing between 1000 BCE and 300 CE, the Nok created highly expressive human and animal figures that show a deep understanding of proportion, emotion, and symbolism. The culture is also notable for early ironworking, making it one of the earliest known iron-using societies in sub-Saharan Africa. Little is known about their language, religion, or social structure, as the culture vanished long before written records in the region. Their statues remained buried for centuries until unearthed by chance during mining operations in the 20th century. In the forests of West Africa, the kingdom of Nri in modern-day Nigeria developed as a spiritual and cultural center among the Igbo people. From the 10th to 16th centuries CE, Nri kings held religious authority, maintaining peace and ritual purity across a decentralized network of towns. Unlike many other African kingdoms, Nri expanded not through conquest, but through diplomacy and religion. It was one of the few places where slavery was prohibited, and its culture emphasized reconciliation and social harmony. Over time, colonial pressures and internal changes eroded the kingdom's influence, but Nri remains central to Igbo cultural identity. Continuing in Africa, the Kerma culture arose in ancient Nubia, in present-day Sudan, around 2500 BCE. Centered on the city of Kerma, this civilization rivaled Egypt in wealth and power. Its people built large mud brick buildings, elaborate tombs, and crafted intricate ceramics and jewelry. The kingdom maintained a complex relationship with Egypt, sometimes trading, sometimes warring. Kerma was eventually conquered by the New Kingdom Egyptians, but its legacy lived on in later Nubian and Kushite states. The discovery of hundreds of black granite statues and burial sites has redefined our understanding of early African political organization. Crossing the Indian Ocean, we land in Madagascar, where the Vazimba are remembered in oral tradition as the island's earliest inhabitants. Though no archaeological evidence confirms their existence as a distinct group, the Vazimba are deeply rooted in Malagasy mythology. They are often portrayed as small, magical people who lived in harmony with nature and were later displaced by more technologically advanced arrivals. Some scholars believe the Vazimba represent early Austronesian settlers who arrived from Southeast Asia before being absorbed or replaced by Bantu-speaking groups. Whether mythical or historical, The Vizimba are a key part of Madagascar's cultural memory. Further east in the Indian Ocean lies Sofala, an ancient port city on the coast of Mozambique. By the 10th century CE, Sofala had become a major trade hub connecting the African interior with the Swahili coast, Arabia, and India. Gold, ivory, and slaves flowed through its markets. Though not an empire in itself, Sofala illustrates the complexity of Indian Ocean trade, long before European colonization. Its role diminished with the rise of Kilwa and later Portuguese interference, but its story remains central to the history of East African commerce and maritime culture. Now let's ascend the Himalayas to the region of Jangjung, an ancient kingdom predating the Tibetan Empire. Located in what is now Western Tibet, Jangjung was the cradle of the Bon religion, a spiritual tradition that predates Buddhism in the region. Jangjung left behind fortress ruins, cave temples, and early texts written in a unique script. Its people practiced sky burials, meditation, and rituals involving nature spirits. The kingdom was eventually absorbed by the expanding Tibetan state in the 7th century CE, but its spiritual legacy persists in Tibetan religious traditions to this day. In the remote plateaus of Iran, the city of Ecbatana, capital of the Median Empire, was described by ancient historians as a grand metropolis, with 7 concentric walls painted in different colors. The Medes were among the first to challenge Assyrian dominance and played a pivotal role in the downfall of Nineveh. Ecbatana later became a summer capital for the Achaemenid Persians and remained important through the Seleucid and Parthian eras. Though few ruins remain, its location near modern Hamadan continues to yield clues to this early Iranian civilization. In the highlands of modern-day Ethiopia, the city of Yeha represents one of the earliest known centers of civilization in the Horn of Africa. Dated to around 800 BCE, Yeha was a major city of the Diamt Kingdom, which displayed strong cultural and architectural links with South Arabian civilizations across the Red Sea. The most iconic structure is a towering temple built of precisely cut stone blocks, still standing after nearly 3 millennia. This temple, believed to have been dedicated to a moon god, bears striking similarities to Sabaean temples in Yemen. Yeha's legacy is one of cultural transmission, as it became a foundation for the later Aksumite Empire, which would rise to prominence centuries later. In Central Asia, the Khwarezmian civilization developed in the region surrounding the Amu Darya River, now part of Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Kazakhstan. Khwarezmia emerged as a powerful state during the first millennium BCE, maintaining its identity through Persian, Greek, and Arab conquests. Its cities featured complex irrigation systems and fortress-like urban layouts. The people of Khwarezmia developed their own script and religious practices, blending Zoroastrianism with local deities. Their independence allowed them to act as cultural and commercial intermediaries on the northern fringes of the Persian world. Archaeological finds such as Toprak Kala have revealed royal palaces, temples, and administrative archives written in a native script that remains only partially deciphered. In southern Russia and Ukraine, the Sarmatians dominated the steppe from the 5th century BCE into the 4th century CE. Successors to the Scythians, they were nomadic horsemen known for their armor, archery, and complex burial practices. Sarmatian women were often buried with weapons, supporting historical claims that they participated in warfare and may have inspired the myth of the Amazons. The Sarmatians had no large urban centers, but created elaborate burial mounds known as kurgans, which contained jewelry, weapons, and Greek imports, testaments to their trade connections and material wealth. Eventually, they were absorbed by the waves of Gothic and Hunnic migrations that reshaped Europe in late antiquity. Further east, in present-day Pakistan and Afghanistan, the Gandhara civilization thrived from the 6th century BCE to the 5th century CE. It was a melting pot of Indian, Persian, and Hellenistic influences, producing a unique artistic tradition known as Gandhara art, one of the earliest visual representations of the Buddha. This art form combined Greco-Roman styles with Buddhist iconography, resulting in sculptures with classical drapery, realistic anatomy, and serene expressions. Gandhara was a cultural bridge between India and the Mediterranean, centered in cities like Taxila and Peshawar. Despite its influence, Gandhara declined under pressure from Hunnic invasions and the rise of other Indian powers. Back in Europe, we uncover the Lepontic culture of the Alpine region, particularly northern Italy and southern Switzerland. These Celtic-speaking peoples flourished from the 6th to the 3rd century BCE and left behind inscriptions in a distinctive alphabet derived from Etruscan script. Lepontic communities lived in fortified hill towns and engaged in metallurgy, agriculture, and trade with their Italic and Gallic neighbors. Their inscriptions represent some of the earliest written records of any Celtic language. Although they were gradually absorbed by Roman expansion, the Lepontic left an enduring imprint on the linguistic and cultural development of the region. To the southeast of Lepontic lands lay Histria, an ancient city on the western coast of the Black Sea in modern-day Romania. Founded by Greek colonists in the 7th century BCE, Histria became a vital trading port linking the Greek world with the Dacians and Scythians inland. The city thrived for centuries, producing coins, temples, and fortifications. It was one of the first Greek settlements in the region and remained a cultural hub through Roman times. Eventually, Histria was abandoned due to environmental changes, coastal erosion, silting, and possibly plague, all of which shifted trade and political power elsewhere. Heading toward the mountainous regions of eastern Anatolia, we encounter the Mushkii, a mysterious people mentioned in Assyrian texts from the early 1st millennium BCE. Some scholars link them with the Phrygians, while others consider them a separate Anatolian group that played a significant role during the Bronze Age collapse. The Mushki are thought to have migrated into central and eastern Anatolia, possibly disrupting established powers and establishing new political configurations. They remain enigmatic due to the lack of inscriptions or clearly identified archaeological sites, but their presence in regional texts suggests they were key players in one of the most turbulent periods of ancient Near Eastern history. In northern China, the Erlegang culture, which emerged around 1600 BCE, is often associated with the early Shang dynasty. This culture was known for its bronze casting, particularly large ritual vessels used in ancestral worship. Their cities, such as Zhengzhou, included palatial complexes, defensive walls, and evidence of centralized planning. The scale and uniformity of bronze artifacts suggest a hierarchical society with complex governance. Early Gang technology influenced surrounding cultures, and their metallurgical practices spread across the Yellow River Valley. As the Shang dynasty evolved, so too did the material culture of Early Gang, becoming more integrated into what we recognize as classical Chinese civilization. In the jungles of Central America, the Epi-Olmec culture developed as the Olmec civilization waned. From around 300 BCE to 250 CE, the Epi-Olmecs occupied the same region and continued many Olmec traditions while also developing innovations of their own. They created a writing system known as the Isthmian or Epi-Olmec script, which included both phonetic and logographic elements. Though not fully deciphered, it provides critical evidence of the transition between the Olmec and classic Maya civilizations. Sites like Tres Zapotes offer insight into this cultural bridge, preserving massive stelae with early calendar notations and royal iconography. In the mountains of northern Iraq, the ancient city of Nuzi once served as a vibrant administrative and cultural center during the late 2nd millennium BCE. Flourishing under the Mitanni and later the Hurrians, Nuzi was notable for its cuneiform archives. Thousands of clay tablets detailing contracts, legal disputes, and family matters. These records offer an intimate glimpse into daily life. Property transfers, adoption agreements, and marriage arrangements. Nuzi's people lived in modest homes arranged along narrow streets, and the city was part of a wider network of Hurrian influence. When the Assyrians eventually absorbed the region, Nuzi was abandoned, but its records remain among the most informative archives of any ancient Mesopotamian city. Northwest of Nuzi, in the Armenian highlands, the Trialeti culture flourished during the early Bronze Age, around 2200 to 1500 BCE. Centered in what is now Georgia and parts of Armenia, Trialeti is best known for its burial mounds, large kurgans that contain bronze weapons, gold ornaments, and intricate ceramics. These finds suggest a stratified society with an elite warrior class. The decorative styles and burial customs bear similarities to cultures in the Iranian Plateau and the Caucasus, indicating trade and cultural exchange across vast regions. Though little written evidence survives, the Trialeti culture contributes to our understanding of early Indo-European migrations and rituals. Now we return to the Mediterranean to uncover the city of Akrotiri, located on the Greek island of Santorini, ancient Thera. Around 1600 BCE, Akrotiri was a flourishing Minoan outpost, filled with multi-story buildings, paved roads, and stunning frescoes depicting nature, marine life, and daily life. What makes Akrotiri exceptional is its preservation. A massive volcanic eruption buried the entire city in ash, freezing it in time, much like Pompeii. No human remains have been found, suggesting the inhabitants evacuated before the eruption. The city's wealth, artistry, and urban design reveal the sophistication of Minoan civilization and their maritime connections across the Aegean. To the northeast, in the grasslands of modern Kazakhstan, lies the Botai culture, active between 3700 and 3100 BCE. The Botai are best known for their pioneering role in the domestication of horses. Archaeological evidence from sites like Krasny Yar and Botai village includes horse bones, tack-like equipment, and residues of fermented mare's milk, early forms of what would become kumis, a traditional Central Asian drink. The Botai lived in semi-subterranean homes and engaged in limited farming and hunting. While their settlements eventually vanished, the legacy of horse domestication would transform transportation, warfare, and culture across Eurasia for millennia. In northern Syria, the ancient city of Ugarit reached its zenith in the 2nd millennium BCE. Strategically located on the Mediterranean coast, Ugarit became a wealthy trading hub, linking Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Aegean. It's most famous for the Ugaritic script, an early alphabetic writing system that influenced Phoenician and, by extension, Greek and Latin alphabets. Ugarit's archives include religious texts, economic documents, and diplomatic correspondence. Its temples were dedicated to Baal and Dagon, and its palaces were adorned with luxury goods. The city was destroyed around 1200 BCE, likely during the Bronze Age collapse, and remained buried until rediscovered in the 20th century. South of Ugarit, in the modern nation of Lebanon, the ancient city of Byblos was one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. Byblos was a major port by the 3rd millennium BCE and the primary source of papyrus for Egypt, so much so that the Greek word for book, biblion, derives from the city's name. The Phoenicians, who occupied Byblos, developed a phonetic alphabet that would become the basis for many of the world's major writing systems. The city also served as a religious center for the worship of Baalat Gabal, a mother goddess. Though much altered over millennia, Byblos retains traces of its ancient walls, temples, and royal tombs. Now let's explore the Muisca Confederation in Colombia more deeply. Known for their metallurgy, the Muisca created elaborate gold artifacts, not for currency, but for ceremonial use. Their most iconic relic, the Muisca raft, depicts a religious ritual with a leader standing on a raft surrounded by attendants, perhaps the source of the El Dorado legend. The Muisca used an advanced calendar system, conducted large-scale salt production, and governed through a decentralized system of caciques, or chiefs. Spanish conquest shattered their confederation, but the Muisca legacy lives on in Colombian art, language, and traditions. Traveling to the American Southwest, the Mogollon culture thrived from around 200 CE to 1450 CE in present-day Arizona, New Mexico, and northern Mexico. The Mogollon are known for their cliff dwellings, pit houses, and finely decorated pottery, especially the iconic black-on-white ceramics. They practiced agriculture, growing maize, beans, and squash, and built small villages near rivers and springs. Over time, they merged culturally with the ancestral Puebloans and Hohokam, forming part of the diverse cultural mosaic of prehistoric North America. Many of their communities were later abandoned, possibly due to drought and migration pressures. To the north, in the icy reaches of Alaska and northern Canada, the Thule culture evolved into the ancestors of modern Inuit peoples. From about 1000 to 1600 CE, the Thule mastered life in the Arctic, building karmat houses from sod and whalebone, crafting sophisticated tools from ivory, and traveling across sea ice using dog sleds and kayaks. The Thule hunted whales, walrus, and caribou, adapting to some of the most extreme environments on Earth. Their migrations spread from western Alaska to Greenland, shaping Inuit identity and survival strategies that continue to the present day. High in the Andes of South America, the Tiwanaku civilization thrived on the shores of Lake Titicaca from around 500 to 1000 CE. Known for their massive stone architecture and mysterious iconography, the people of Tiwanaku constructed an elaborate ceremonial complex, including the Akapana Pyramid, Kalasasaya Temple, and the iconic Gateway of the Sun. The precision with which they cut and fitted large stones, without mortar, is still a subject of fascination. Their artwork depicted deities, animals, and complex geometric patterns, often interpreted as astronomical or cosmological symbols. The Tiwanaku developed advanced agricultural techniques, including raised field farming that supported large populations at high altitudes. Despite the scale of their achievements, Tiwanaku eventually declined, possibly due to prolonged droughts, social unrest, or shifting trade routes. Yet their legacy deeply influenced the later Inca Empire, which revered the site and incorporated Tiwanaku myths into their origin stories. North of Tiwanaku, in modern-day Bolivia and Peru, the Lupaca and Colla were Aymara-speaking polities that rose in the wake of Tiwanaku's decline. While often overshadowed by the Inca, these highland societies maintained independent states centered on lakefront cities and sacred peaks. They were expert llama herders and engaged in ritual warfare and diplomacy to control trade and water rights. These smaller but resilient polities would eventually be incorporated into the Inca Empire, but their languages, customs, and social structures would leave a lasting imprint on the Andean world. Crossing the Atlantic, we arrive at the site of Great Zimbabwe, a monumental stone city that served as the heart of a powerful kingdom in southern Africa between the 11th and 15th centuries CE. The city's massive dry stone walls, towers, and enclosures were built without mortar, showcasing advanced engineering and aesthetic sensibility. Great Zimbabwe was a political, religious, and trading center. Archaeologists have found Chinese porcelain, Persian glass, and Arab coins, evidence of long-distance trade networks connecting sub-Saharan Africa with the wider Indian Ocean world. The kingdom's wealth was largely built on cattle, gold mining, and control of regional trade routes. European colonists in the 19th century tried to attribute the ruins to foreign builders, unable or unwilling to believe that African societies could achieve such architectural sophistication. Modern scholarship has corrected these misconceptions, affirming Great Zimbabwe's indigenous origins and its role as a major center of African history. In the deserts of western China, the ancient city of Nia, sometimes referred to as the Pompeii of the Taklamakan Desert, once lay on a southern branch of the Silk Road. Flourishing between the 2nd century BCE and 4th century CE, Nia was a cosmopolitan oasis inhabited by Indo-European-speaking peoples, likely of the Tocharian linguistic group. Excavations have revealed well-preserved documents, wooden tablets, textiles, and household items, all preserved by the arid climate. These artifacts depict a society that blended Indian, Chinese, Persian, and Central Asian traditions. The city was eventually buried by encroaching desert sands, leaving a frozen snapshot of everyday life in a Silk Road oasis. Farther east, in the Gansu corridor of China, lies Juyan, another critical Silk Road outpost, known for its cache of bamboo slips, thin wooden strips used for writing. These slips date to the Han Dynasty and provide invaluable insights into frontier administration, military organization, and diplomatic exchanges with nomadic tribes. Though Juyan was primarily a military garrison, it developed into a multi-ethnic hub that facilitated communication and trade between the Chinese heartland and the western steppes. Like Nia, it was eventually abandoned as trade patterns shifted and desertification made the area less hospitable. To the south, the Tamils of the Sangam age in southern India developed a sophisticated literary and urban culture between 300 BCE and 300 CE. The Tamilakam region included powerful kingdoms like the Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas, each with distinctive capital cities such as Madurai and Urayur. The Sangam poets wrote in classical Tamil, celebrating love, war, valor, and the natural world. Archaeological sites like Korkai and Arikamedu show evidence of Roman trade goods, indicating contact with the Mediterranean. Though the kingdoms endured in various forms, much of the early Sangam-era culture faded due to political upheaval and shifting trade patterns. Eastward in Southeast Asia, the Funan kingdom gave way to the Chenla polity around the 6th century CE in what is now Cambodia and southern Laos. Chenla inherited Funan's infrastructure and expanded inland, focusing on temple building and consolidating regional power. The Chenla rulers adopted Sanskrit inscriptions and Hindu iconography, while still preserving indigenous animist practices. Their political landscape was fractious, with numerous small principalities and competing dynasties. Eventually, Chenla would become the foundation for the rise of the Khmer Empire, which built the famed Angkor Wat complex centuries later. South of the Chenla kingdom, in what is today southern Thailand and northern Malaysia, we find the enigmatic Kedah Tua civilization, centered around the Bujang Valley. Flourishing from around 300 BCE to 1100 CE, this maritime kingdom was one of the earliest urbanized societies in Southeast Asia. It served as a crucial link between India and China in the Indian Ocean trade network. Bujang Valley's archaeological landscape reveals Hindu-Buddhist temples, iron smelting facilities, and evidence of advanced urban planning. Its temples, known locally as Kandi, demonstrate a blend of indigenous Malay and imported South Asian architectural influences. The region was deeply engaged in religious exchange, adopting and localizing spiritual ideas from India while maintaining indigenous beliefs. As regional power shifted to Srivijaya and later to the Thai kingdoms, Kedah's role diminished, and many of its cities were abandoned to the jungle. Sailing west across the Bay of Bengal, the Andamanese cultures offer a very different glimpse into ancient human life. These hunter-gatherer societies, isolated for tens of thousands of years on the Andaman Islands, represent a living link to early human migrations out of Africa. Their languages and customs remained untouched by outside contact until the colonial era. While not urban or literate civilizations in the traditional sense, the Andamanese developed complex oral traditions, navigation skills, and social structures uniquely adapted to their island environment. The encroachment of modernity, disease, and displacement severely impacted their populations, but some groups, like the Sentinelese, continue to live in near total isolation, preserving a lifestyle that predates the earliest cities. Further west, off the coast of modern-day Yemen, lies the island of Socotra, a remote, rugged, and ecologically unique outpost that was historically part of ancient trade networks. Often associated with the fabled Phoenix Island or Dragon's Blood Island due to its endemic flora, Socotra has served as a navigational marker and trading stop since antiquity. The people of Socotra developed their own language, script, and customs. Archaeological evidence suggests that both pre-Islamic and early Christian communities flourished on the island, living in cave dwellings and rock-cut monasteries. Though not an empire or kingdom, Socotra's isolation and its role as a waypoint between Africa, Arabia, and India give it a special place among the lesser-known chapters of global history. To the northwest, in the Levant, the city of Mari, located along the Euphrates in present-day Syria, was once a major hub of Semitic culture. During the 3rd and early 2nd millennium BCE, Mari became a powerful city-state known for its palace, the largest of its kind ever excavated in the ancient Near East. The Mari Palace housed over 20,000 clay tablets detailing diplomacy, religious rituals, and daily affairs. These texts have offered scholars a detailed look into the relationships between Mesopotamian city-states, revealing the politics, marriages, and intrigues that shaped early imperial diplomacy. The city's strategic location allowed it to control trade and military routes between Mesopotamia and the Levant, until it was destroyed by Hammurabi of Babylon. Not far from Mari lies the city of Ebla, another great center of the 3rd millennium BCE. Ebla was a literary powerhouse. Its royal archives contained one of the earliest collections of written Semitic languages. The city had well-planned streets, public buildings, and a pantheon that combined Mesopotamian and local deities. Ebla's rulers established treaties, trade agreements, and cultural exchanges with far-flung regions, from Anatolia to Sumer. Its destruction by rival city-states marked the end of an era, but the excavation of its archive has been pivotal in reconstructing early Semitic linguistic development and Bronze Age geopolitics. Across the Aegean Sea, the Cycladic civilization flourished on the Cyclades Islands during the early Bronze Age, roughly 3200 to 2000 BCE. Best known for their stylized marble figurines, smooth, abstract depictions of the human form, the Cycladic people developed a seafaring culture centered around fishing, trade, and ritual. Their settlements were often built on elevated terrain with protective walls, and their artifacts suggest extensive trade with Crete, mainland Greece, and Anatolia. The simplistic elegance of Cycladic art would later influence modern artists like Picasso and Modigliani. Despite their aesthetic impact, much about their religion and political organization remains speculative, as few inscriptions survive. East of Mesopotamia, in the ancient land of Elam, modern-day southwestern Iran, the Elamite civilization was a contemporary and often rival to Sumer, Akkad, and Babylon. With its capital at Susa, Elam developed a unique language and writing system, unrelated to its neighbors. The Elamites built ziggurats, minted coins, and maintained diplomatic relations with major powers of the time. Elam was a bridge between the Mesopotamian world and the Iranian plateau. Its queens often held prominent political power, and its artisans produced exquisite metalwork. After centuries of independence and conflict, Elam was eventually absorbed by the Achaemenid Persians, who inherited and built upon its administrative systems. On the steppe frontier, the Kushan Empire united parts of modern Afghanistan, Pakistan, and northern India between the 1st and 3rd centuries CE. Descended from the Yuezhi nomads, the Kushans played a crucial role in the development of the Silk Road and the spread of Buddhism. Their rulers adopted multiple religions, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, and Greco-Roman cults, reflecting the empire's diversity. The city of Gandhara within the Kushan domain became a center for Greco-Buddhist art, blending Indian themes with Hellenistic techniques. The Kushans issued gold coins bearing portraits of rulers and deities, and their influence extended from Central Asia to the Indian Ocean. Crossing the Pacific once more, the Valdivia culture of coastal Ecuador stands among the oldest settled cultures in the Americas, flourishing from around 3500 to 1500 BCE. They were among the first in the New World to develop ceramics, including their distinctive Venus figurines with exaggerated features, possibly representing fertility or spiritual themes. Valdivia settlements included circular houses, community spaces, and ritual mounds. They cultivated maize, squash, and beans, and engaged in fishing and shell gathering. Intriguingly, some scholars have noted similarities between Valdivian pottery and early Japanese styles, raising questions about potential trans-Pacific contact, though this theory remains debated. Moving into the Pacific, the Lapita culture is considered the ancestral civilization of the Polynesians, Micronesians, and parts of Melanesia. Around 1500 BCE, Lapita people began a remarkable eastward migration across the vast Pacific, settling hundreds of islands over thousands of miles. Their distinctive pottery, decorated with geometric motifs, has been found from the Solomon Islands to Samoa. They built ocean-going canoes, practiced advanced navigation using stars and wave patterns, and brought with them domesticated plants and animals. The Lapita spread set the stage for the later rise of the Polynesian Triangle and its many cultures, from Hawaii to Easter Island. Sailing further into the Pacific, we come upon the remote island of Nan Madol, part of present-day Micronesia. Often called the Venice of the Pacific, Nan Madol was constructed on a series of artificial islets built atop a coral reef. The city consists of nearly 100 small islands separated by narrow canals, constructed from massive basalt stones. Nan Madol served as the ceremonial and political center of the Saudeleur dynasty, which ruled Pompeii until around the 17th century. The purpose of the city's enormous stone tombs and temples remains partially mysterious, as no written records were left behind. Oral tradition speaks of divine intervention and supernatural feats in the city's construction, adding to its mystique. It is one of the only known cities built entirely on water, a monumental feat given its remote island location and lack of modern tools. Turning our attention to North America, the Mississippian culture flourished from roughly 800 CE to 1600 CE, particularly in the river valleys of the Midwest and Southeast. Its largest urban center, Cahokia, located near modern-day St. Louis, once hosted tens of thousands of residents. At its height, it was the largest city north of Mexico. Cahokia featured monumental earthen mounds, including Monk's Mound, which remains the largest pre-Columbian earthwork in the Americas. The society practiced intensive agriculture, particularly maize cultivation, and developed complex political and religious institutions. Its layout indicates astronomical alignments, and the remains of wooden structures suggest ritualistic observatories akin to Stonehenge. Despite its size and influence, Cahokia and other Mississippian centers were gradually abandoned, likely due to environmental pressures, social upheaval, and possibly diseases introduced through early contact. Their legacy endures in the oral traditions of Native American tribes and the physical remnants scattered throughout the Mississippi Basin. Southwest of Cahokia, the Hohokam culture of Arizona created an extensive system of irrigation canals, the most sophisticated in pre-Columbian North America. Flourishing between 200 CE and 1450 CE, the Hohokam harnessed desert rivers to support agriculture in an arid climate. They lived in organized villages and constructed platform mounds and ball courts, which suggest cultural exchange with Mesoamerican civilizations. Their red-on-buff pottery, jewelry, and petroglyphs show artistic continuity and innovation. Around the 15th century, many Hohokam settlements were abandoned, and the reasons remain speculative, ranging from prolonged droughts to social reorganization. Further east, in the southwestern United States, the ancestral Puebloans, often referred to as the Anasazi, developed intricate cliff dwellings and ceremonial structures known as kivas. Sites like Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon illustrate their architectural skill and social complexity. Chaco Canyon, in particular, stood as a ceremonial and administrative hub, featuring multi-storied stone buildings aligned with solar and lunar cycles. The roads connecting Chaco to outlying settlements indicate a vast, integrated society. By the late 13th century, the ancestral Puebloans migrated away from their great houses, perhaps due to resource strain or climatic instability, but their descendants continue their traditions today in the Hopi, Zuni, and other Puebloan peoples. Crossing the ocean once more, we arrive in Southeast Asia at the height of the Srivijaya Empire, which dominated maritime trade from the 7th to the 13th centuries CE. Based in what is now Palembang, on the island of Sumatra, Srivijaya controlled the vital Strait of Malacca, connecting the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. As a thalassocracy, a sea-based empire, Srivijaya amassed wealth by taxing trade ships and acting as an intermediary between China, India, and the Middle East. The empire was also a major center of Mahayana Buddhism, attracting scholars and monks from across Asia, including the famed Chinese pilgrim Yijing. Despite its influence, Srivijaya left behind few written records. Its decline came gradually through raids by the Chola dynasty, competition from the rising Majapahit Empire, and shifting trade routes. Today, the submerged ruins and inscriptions found in Sumatra and the Malay Peninsula testify to its grandeur and strategic importance. From Srivijaya, we move south to the island of Java, where the Majapahit Empire rose around 1293 CE. Majapahit became the dominant power in maritime Southeast Asia, controlling trade and politics across much of the archipelago, from Borneo and Bali to parts of the Philippines. The empire's court in Trowulan was renowned for its sophistication, art, and administration. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Gajah Mada and King Hayam Wuruk, Majapahit reached its cultural zenith, producing literary works in Old Javanese, erecting temples like Panataran, and maintaining an intricate bureaucracy. The fall of Majapahit in the 15th century came with the spread of Islam through maritime trade networks and the rise of Islamic sultanates. Nevertheless, Majapahit remains a symbol of unity and glory in modern Indonesian nationalism. In the Horn of Africa, the Adal Sultanate was a powerful Islamic state that rose to prominence in the 14th and 15th centuries CE, centered around the region of modern-day eastern Ethiopia, Djibouti, and northern Somalia. Adal was known for its resistance to Ethiopian Christian kingdoms, most famously under the leadership of Imam Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi in the 16th century. Adal's cities, such as Zayla and Harar, were centers of scholarship, architecture, and trade, linking the interior of Africa with the Arabian Peninsula and India. Although ultimately defeated by a coalition of Ethiopian and Portuguese forces, Adal's cultural and religious influence endures in the region. Far to the north, in what is now Russia, the Volga Bulgars established a prosperous state at the confluence of the Volga and Kama rivers between the 7th and 13th centuries. Originally Turkic nomads, they settled into a sedentary society, built fortified cities, and converted to Islam in the 10th century. Volga Bulgaria became a trading powerhouse, connecting the Islamic world with the Rus principalities and beyond. Its artisans crafted intricate metalwork, ceramics, and textiles, while its scholars contributed to Islamic science and philosophy. The Mongol invasion in the 13th century decimated the region, leading to the rise of the Khanate of Kazan and other successor states. Journeying deeper into the steppes of Central Asia, we find the traces of the Khwarezmian Empire, a civilization that thrived at the crossroads of Persia, the Silk Road, and the Islamic world. The Khwarezmians ruled from their capital Gurganj, modern-day Urgench, at the edge of the Karakum Desert. Rising to prominence in the 11th century, their empire became a center of science, trade, and governance. Khwarezmian scholars made notable contributions to mathematics, astronomy, and geography, none more famous than Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, whose name gave us the word algorithm. Their cities were vibrant hubs, full of libraries, gardens, and marketplaces. But the empire met a catastrophic end in the early 13th century, when Genghis Khan unleashed one of history's most destructive invasions. Cities were leveled and countless lives lost, leading to the complete collapse of a flourishing culture that had once bridged east and west. To the west, in the forests and rivers of Eastern Europe, the Cucuteni Tripilia culture remains one of the most mysterious prehistoric societies. Spanning modern-day Ukraine, Moldova, and Romania, this Neolithic culture flourished from about 5500 to 2750 BCE. What sets them apart is their immense settlements, some of the largest in prehistoric Europe, with well-planned streets and hundreds of homes arranged in concentric circles. Their pottery was intricate and vibrant, often painted with spirals, waves, and abstract animal figures. The Cucuteni Tripilians regularly burned and rebuilt their settlements, a ritual whose purpose remains speculative. There's no evidence of fortifications or warfare, which has led some to theorize that they lived in relatively peaceful, egalitarian communities, though the reasons for their eventual disappearance are unknown. North of the Black Sea, the Scythians ruled the steppes from the 9th century BCE to around the 2nd century CE. These fierce, horse-riding nomads confounded both the Persians and the Greeks. Herodotus wrote extensively about them, describing their customs, battle tactics, and burial practices. Their society was hierarchical, and their elite were interred in massive kurgans filled with golden artifacts, weapons, and even sacrificed horses. The Scythians had no cities, but developed a rich artistic tradition, what scholars call Scythian animal style, depicting stylized beasts in gold, bronze, and wood. Though eventually absorbed by other steppe cultures and the expanding Roman and Sarmatian frontiers, their identity lingers in art, oral tradition, and the long shadow of the steppes. Returning to Africa, in the highlands of southeastern Nigeria, the Igbo Ukwu civilization emerged around the 9th century CE. This early Igbo society produced bronze artifacts of astonishing sophistication. Intricate castings of ropes, beads, and ceremonial items, using a technique known as lost wax casting. What surprised archaeologists was the apparent absence of a large urban centre or palace. The artifacts were found in a burial context, suggesting a deeply spiritual and ceremonial culture. Igbo Ukwu challenges the assumption that centralized states are a prerequisite for complex metallurgy and cultural development. Its art stands as a testament to African innovation and the spiritual richness of early Igbo society. Across the Indian Ocean, the Lemuria hypothesis, though scientifically discredited, still looms large in popular imagination. First proposed in the 19th century to explain geological similarities between India, Madagascar, and Africa, the concept of a lost landmass gave rise to myths of a sunken continent. In Tamil literature, references to Kumari Kandam, a submerged Tamil homeland, echo this idea. While modern geology attributes these observations to continental drift, the myth of Lemuria has inspired alternative histories, esoteric writings, and cultural pride. Whether real or imagined, Lemuria represents how deeply humans yearn to uncover and reclaim forgotten origins. Southeast of Lemuria's mythic space lies the Bactrian Margiana archaeological complex, also known as Oxus civilization, which thrived around 2200 to 1700 BCE in present-day Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and northern Afghanistan. Only rediscovered in the 1970s, this civilization left behind fortified cities, temples, and richly furnished tombs. They traded with the Indus Valley, Elam, and Mesopotamia, and their religious practices may have influenced early Zoroastrianism. The Oxus people crafted elaborate jewelry, stone seals, and distinctive clay figurines, often of women with stylized headdresses. Their abrupt disappearance may have coincided with climate shifts and changes in trade routes, leaving behind ghost cities in the desert sands. Northwest of this region, the ancient city of Ain Dara in Syria is now mostly ruins, but once it stood as a magnificent temple complex built around the 10th century BCE. Most notable are the massive stone footprints carved into the floor, interpreted by some as symbolic traces of a deity's presence. The temple's basalt lions, sphinxes, and intricate reliefs show a fusion of Neo-Hittite, Aramean, and Mesopotamian styles. Though not part of a major empire, Ain Dara reflects the localized splendor and spiritual devotion of smaller Near Eastern kingdoms, many of which were eventually overshadowed by Assyria and Babylon. Sadly, parts of Ain Dara were destroyed in recent conflicts, reminding us how fragile our shared human heritage can be. One final stop takes us to the Kingdom of Aksum, a powerful empire based in modern Ethiopia and Eritrea, which thrived from the 1st to the 7th centuries CE. Aksum was one of the greatest empires of its time, trading with Rome, India, and Arabia. Its monumental obelisks, carved from single blocks of stone, remain architectural marvels. The Aksumites minted coins, developed a written script, Ge'ez, and were among the first states to adopt Christianity. Their fleets sailed the Red Sea and Indian Ocean, spreading African influence abroad. The kingdom's gradual decline came with Islamic expansion and changing trade networks, but its religious and linguistic legacy endures, especially in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. As we conclude this long, winding journey through the world's lost civilizations, we've traversed deserts, climbed mountains, crossed oceans, and peered into forgotten cities. From rainforests to river valleys, from ancient libraries to stone monoliths, these cultures were once vibrant centers of life, now silent, yet echoing in ruins, artifacts, and memory. Each civilization, whether known through its art, its trade, its gods, or its myths, tells us something vital about who we are and what we might become. Their stories live on, not just in museums or textbooks, but in the enduring curiosity of those who seek to understand the deep currents of human history.